For the first time on this channel, I'm going to look back at some no limit hold'em hands. We're going back to 2014 full tilt poker, 300, 600. That's a 60K buy-in. No limit hold'em 6 max. I haven't seen how these hands play out. So let's see what happens. So as we look around the table here, this is a really tough table. A lot of well-known players who are actually more known for mixed games, but should be pretty strong in no limit hold'em as well. PostflopAction, Alex Kostridzen to my right. To his right, polarizing, that's Phil Ivey, the man, the myth, the legend. To his right, Nikki Jedlicka, which is his actual name. Crazy Elior Scion to his right, and Sam Rostan. I've got a few tables going here. This particular table, this is the lineup, but you will see some other lineups as we get going. I bought in for 30K here. I have 30K. I'm a little surprised by that. I rarely would play short. It might have been that I was spread pretty thin, my account balance this day. But anyways, without further ado, this is every hand where I saw the turn. So if open the button, ace-7 off, Crazy Elior calls in the big blind, decide to check this flop back, which is not particularly good for my range. Not particularly bad, but check seems fine. He bets 2/3. I mean, I think it's probably a fold. It's not the craziest call in the world. It looks like I did make the call. So the reason I make this call is I think he's going to have a lot of potential gut shots to choose from. Any 3, any 4, obviously, 7-8, 7-9, 9-8. He'll have his flush draws, but also I don't think he's betting a 6. I don't think he's betting a 5. He might not. And then as far as Jack X, like if he has a Jack, I think oftentimes he'll check to check call. If he has 2 pair or better, I think he'll often check to check raise on this Jack over card. So I guess I kind of felt he wouldn't have a lot of value and he would have a lot of semi bluffs. So I made this call. I've talked myself into a call in present day. He checks river. Interesting. So it could be that he was making a bet with something like 6-4. It could also be that he was bluffing with something like 10-3 and river to 10 and didn't feel like he could value bet anymore. I'm not going to turn ace-7 into a bluff here because I do also have those, queen 3 suiteds and 7-9 of diamonds, things like that to choose from. So just check back. He did have king 9 of diamonds. I think he should probably check turn. It's just a little bit too much showdown value to start bluffing with. There you go. PostflopAction raises the small blind. He's probably going to be, he applies a lot of pressure. I wouldn't say the most pressure on the table. We have some aggressive players on this table. Basically him, Phil Ivey, and Nikki Jedlicka are all pretty aggressive. But I defend the big blind with king 5 offsuit. He bets half pot. I think this is probably just a fold and call with a backdoor flush draw. I decided to raise. I have no idea why. I was a lot more of a field player back in 2014 and earlier. I guess I still kind of am a field player, but this is a really, really a field play. I don't get it. Like, take a hand like 9-7 suited and raise, or even 9-4 suited and raise with a backdoor flush draw, sure. But king 5, he's just calling all better hands and folding all worse hands. So I don't get this. He calls, he checks the turn. I think I should check this back. It's not the worst bet because everything from the flop gets there, but not having a heart, I don't know. I think it's just a little too ambitious. He does call. Now I think I should barrel off. 4 is pretty interesting. Yeah, I think having no hearts in my hand, it's just hard to raise this flop and not have something. The 4 is unfortunate. Had the river been a 3, now I have all the flop 2 pair, but now actually ace-3 is too thin to jam. And I'm not raising flop with ace-4 or 8-4 or 3-4, and I may or may not bet the turn with 4x. So the 4 is not a great river. I'd go either way here. Decided to check and lose to 8-7. I think probably river jam would have worked, although it was 2014. People were doing a lot of hero calling. It wasn't so much based on, where we're at in our range. Okay, so I think what was happening, this is a short stack table. It looks like, I think what was happening is a lot of tables were popping up and people were buying in short and then kind of running it up, and 1 or 2 players were jumping around. Here we see Isildur join the mix. This hand, he opens with 24 big blinds or 20, I don't know, math. I think it's just to get in with 8s. He jams, we call, we probably gonna win the second one. Wow, we win both against ace king. King queen off. So yeah, I like calling here. Raising would be okay. Isildur comes along in the big blind. We whiff the flop. We face a big bet. This is just a fold. It's not the craziest hand to do something with, but you have to be pretty careful against these over half pot bets and 3-way pots. Looks like I called. Isildur calls as well. Jack on the turn. Yeah, Viktor, this is a good lead from Viktor just because when he overcalls, first of all, he's raising 4x on the flop. So when he overcalls, he has a lot of Jack X. And even though Nikki does as well, and I might as well, I just think Nikki and I are a little bit more likely to have a 4 than Isildur is. So I don't know. I like his lead. Easy fold from me. He can obviously have some bluffs, but you know. All right, so this is a funny one. So this table just started. The small blind is Sam Rostan. The big blind is Isildur. Post-flop action has posted under the gun. Oh, I guess it didn't just start. What happened? But post-flop action is posted under the gun. And Phil Ivey has posted under the gun +1. And Phil Ivey's going to raise. This is actually kind of tempting to slow play because it's a really funny spot where post-flop action is supposed to be really weak. Ivey's going to be weaker than usual because he's got that dead money in there now. And there's the 600 in the middle dead money. So he might raise a ton here. And so if I just call, I feel like this is the type of table that pounces on that. So I wouldn't mind just calling here with aces. But 3-bet is more standard. Okay, I just called. I like that. I think this is the table to do that at. Like Nikki, Isildur, and post-flop action are all the type to make that read. That like if I had a good hand, I would just raise, and this seems a lot more like a Jack 10 suited or 9-8 suited from me. So I think this is the table for this play. Any table is a good table to flop an overfull. Phil Ivey checks, so I can obviously bet my hand. I decided to check. I mean, I don't remember why I decided to check in 2014, but what I'm thinking now is Ivey's got a really weak range, and so keep in mind we're multi-tabling and it's hard to keep all these thoughts together, but he might not be thinking that I know his range is super weak. And so when I check back, he might try to rep something later when he's going to have a lot of air that's check folding. Nikki's relatively aggressive. I block most of the aces. So I do decide to check. Phil Ivey calls. So he's got like a weak ace. He probably has a weak ace. And Nikki probably has a bluff or an 8. I think I'd just call. And I mean, by the time I call, I'm saying I have a flush draw or an ace, and one of us has an ace, so Nikki might start to get a little bit worried, but I don't think so. I think call is the play, and if he has an 8, the money's going in anyways. He checks back, so now basically Nikki had a flop bluff or potentially ace 10, and Ivey has a weak ace usually, or potentially a flush draw. This is the range that I'm putting everybody on, and now I think I need to bet because I don't think Nikki's going to. I think Phil Ivey either has a missed flush draw or a weak ace, and I want to get money from his weak ace. I think I should have bet small. First of all, it gives somebody the option to bluff raise, repping the straight, or to value raise a straight. Not that they're going to fold anyways, but I overcalled flop. It's really tough for me to have a bluffing hand here, so like going big. I just think this looks like I have a big hand. I don't like the jam. They're both going to fold. So I think that's a mistake. I think I was getting greedy. But small bets were not as much of a thing back then. All right, Isildur raises, Ivey calls. I don't know if this is a call on the big blind, but we do call with queen 8. Checked around, we turn an 8. This is a reasonably good bluffing hand. With a diamond, it gets better. I decide to check. And now I think just check and showdown and probably lose, but you never know. Isildur has Jack 6 suited, Ivey 3s, and I'm going to win with my 8. That's not an open pre. All right, so Elior raises cutoff. This hand probably just call, especially from the big blind. From the small blind, I do more 3-betting. From the big blind, I would have more polarized 3-betting range. Shout out to Phil Ivey's screen name. Easy check call on this flop. He's going pretty big, which is not as much of a thing. And he's going big here. And I don't know. I know that at the time, my read on Elior was that he was not very aggressive. And so I view this as a little bit scary. He's going to have kind of something to keep betting here. I don't think he's the type to just barrel 10-10 with a spade. So we need him to have... Like he's not going to have 10-9 offsuit, maybe 10-9 offsuit pre, queen 9 offsuit pre. That's all we can hope for, really, I think, for a bluff. I'm exaggerating, but I think you have to keep in mind it's 2014. Nobody's that good. And I do kind of think that he's going to struggle to find enough bluffs here, so I like the fold. Also, I mean, he bet big on the flop. All right, so this hand I should not be seeing a flop with, but I sneak on in there with 6-4 suited. I flop a gut shot. Sam Rostan bets. Isildur calls. I mean, I have 4 clean outs. I'm 10% to hit the turn. I need 20% to call. And I guess I have a little bit in the way of implied odds, so I like calling here. Obviously, I could raise, but I prefer the call. And now just fold. All right. PostflopAction raises. Ivey calls. Clear call. Okay. So I decided to bet. I mean, this is not a good bet. I'm sure I made the read that. So this does often happen where the preflop raiser bets a lot of their good hands. This did often happen. It probably does in low stakes games these days. Preflop raiser bets a lot of their good hands. Then when they don't, the second player to act, Phil Ivey in this case, is likely to bet with a hand like sixes to kind of clear up equity and take down the pot, or, you know, sixes or better basically. And so I think Ivey's often weak. I think PostflopAction Alex is often weak. And so I go for the stab. This is not the right hand to choose. Terrible hand. Both players call. I turn a 9. Okay, so this is a bad turn bet. I guess I felt like it was unlikely that somebody was going to call with. So what do I think? I think PostflopAction is check calling with like a 5 and Ivey has 6s and I'm getting value and protection here. I don't know. It's a bad bet. I should check the turn. I get 1 call. I wonder, was I this advanced? I wonder, no, because I would go a little bigger. Basically, I was going to say, I wonder if I bet a little bigger here, could potentially make postflop fold a hand like Queen Jack, and then Ivey could either like here, because he has to worry about both of us, and then Ivey could call with a hand like Ace 5 if he doesn't believe me, or he can call with a King 10 of spades or something else that I beat, some kind of draw. So if I bet something like 10K here, I would kind of like, well, I wouldn't like it still, but it would be more reasonable. Oh, I rivered 2 pair. So he doesn't have Queen 10. He doesn't have 10-7 unless they're spades, which I already lose to spades. So I basically only lose to spades and Jack 8. It's going to be very rare. He will have Jack 8 suited pre and play it this way potentially, but I think it's a clear value bet. So I go for 2/3. Looks good to me. He calls with Jack 10. Okay. We take down a nice pot. Okay, call the big blind. King 7 offsuit. We flop top pair. Easy check call. Ace on the turn. He checks back. It's hard to make much money here when you call a big bet on King 10 3 rainbow and the ace hits. Like, there's not much air left, but I could have Jack 9. I could have Queen 9. I could have 3x. It turns it into a bluff. So I kind of like going for a small bet here. I decided to check. Hit queens. Okay. Aces. We're going to 3-bet. What are stacks here? Full stacks. We 3-bet. Isildur is going to put in the 4-bet. I think this is just a call, especially against him. He's very willing. I don't like this shove. I think it's a mistake. We do get it in. Presumably good. He has ace king. Too bad for him. I mean, sometimes you do jam aces, but I don't know, unless I had a really strong feeling that he just had it. He's just a great candidate to let barrel off with c-bets. He's very into c-betting. All right, me versus Ivey, blind versus blind. I open 10-5 suited, which is iffy. I go for a big c-bet on this board. I guess that's not that bad. He calls the big c-bet. Turn 9, I decide to check. He bets. So first of all, this is a tough spot. So my reads on Ivey at the time, he's very aggressive in a spot like this with any pair. So he's betting any pair for protection. Also against turn c-bets, he's pretty aggressive here with pairs in terms of like, he'll raise a lot of 9x, he'll raise some semi-bluffs, but I could also see him raising a hand like 6s just to get some protection and make, like put me in a tough spot, make the hand easier to play. And so my options are not great with my hand. I think I probably should have bet. But given that I didn't, I checked. This is pretty awkward because I need almost 30% equity. I'm going to hit a flush. 20% of the time. And a 10 might be good. 5 could be good. It's rare that I have the best hand, but it's possible. It's just a pretty weird spot. Let's see. I decided to raise. So the tough thing about this spot, and the reason why Ivey makes all these bets with like king 3 and pocket 4s on the turn, is that there's not a lot I can do about it, because do I really want to make a big raise like this with kings, which then by the time he calls turn and calls river are not going to be in that great shape. And so I feel like I feel like I don't rep much. I rep a 9. And would I do this with a 9 against him? Yes, I think he's a great candidate to do that against, because I think he'll kind of bet everything on the turn when check 2, everything in air quotes, because not literally everything, but I think he'll have a really high betting frequency on the turn. This is 2014 Ivey. I haven't played with him recently at No Limit Hold'em. But then he's not going to believe me here. So he calls as 2023 Phil expects. And I river a 10. And this is actually really interesting, because I wouldn't want to, well, would I? Maybe against him I do want to start just check raising kings and jacks and stuff, because I think he'll just call down enough. But anyways, now that I've gotten here, I guess I could check fold, but it's actually not inconceivable that he would just, would he value jam a worse hand? I don't think so. Anyways, check folding feels uncomfortable, but I could check fold. The question is, am I good often enough to value bet? Is he going to call with worse than a 10 often enough for me to value bet? And I think he might. If he has, yeah. So there are 2 9s out there. There are one deuce, 1 3. He'll have some pocket pairs over the 3 as well. He'll have some ace high, ace 5 even. I guess that by the time he calls a check raise, a little, no, he might. Anyways, I think it's a jam, actually. It looks like that's what I did. Yeah, I like the jam. Obviously, sometimes I'm running into a better hand, but I think I'm often not. And I think he won't believe this very much, so I like it. He actually folded, so I did have the best hand, but he did believe it, or he missed a flush draw as well. All right, Nicky opens an early position. I defend the big blind. Flop very well. He checks back. Turn very well as well. Could go either way. I could bet this or check this. He's going to have some underpairs to the jack, although he might bet a lot of those on the flop. But what's he calling a big bet with that's not betting itself? I don't know. I kind of like, in 2014, I think I like a check raise. Yep, there we go. Unfortunately, he folds. But the reason I like a check raise in 2014 is I just think he's going to bet every 2-pair hand here, and then a lot of draws. And if I make a big bet and he doesn't have 2-pair or a draw, he's not going to call. So, with a couple exceptions. So I like going for the check raise. I think I get more money that way. Here we 3-bet ace king offsuit against Phil Ivey. We're 3-betting in an amount that kind of commits us against his short stack. But not necessarily if others jam. He jams. We have an easy call with ace king, and we lose to jacks. Phil Ivey only runs it once, if you didn't know that. Defend the big blind, king jack offsuit, flop nothing, check, check, flop. I don't know why I did this. It just doesn't seem good, but I did. I should probably keep betting if I bet this turn, but just blocking no draws. But instead I check fold. I don't know what that turn bet was. Raise jacks. Isildur calls in the small blind. Easy check back, I think. Close on the turn. I kind of like checking back now, but I probably bet. All right. Defend the big blind, ace 5 off. Easy check down, easy continue to check. Checks down 6s, which is, you might want to bluff that on river. But he was definitely, he underbluffed in these games. It's one of his leaks, in my opinion. Ace 8 suited, usually call this. I guess you could 3-bet. We're deep. We're 200 big blinds deep. No, Phil. I need to just fold to 2/3 pot with ace 8 in the back door. So that's a bad call. And now I wasted some money and I get to fold the turn. Hey, T-Rex. So I call a raise, get check 2. Yeah, I like the check back. Check back once again. Like, I'm often winning against an ace high or some kind of smaller pocket pair, but he also has, jacks, 10s, 9s. No, this is a terrible bet. I don't like this bet, and because I'm just making all worse hands fold and better hands call. So now I'm probably going to lose at showdown. 7-10 of hearts. Well played by him. Open under the gun with jack 10 suited. We are deep. 200 big blinds deep. I thought we were deeper because my stack is deeper. So I call this hand. I mean, I think you have to call, but he is making it pretty big, and we are under the gun +1. I think you have to have jack 10 suited in your range somewhat, but just for board coverage and stuff this deep. But it's not a thrilling spot. I could also 4-bet, of course, but wouldn't do a lot of that. Flop top pair, he bets big. I'm going to call. No, Phil, what are you doing? I actually remember this hand. So I thought to myself, I remember what I thought. I thought, all right, well, this is going to get uncomfortable. But if I check raise, so instead of calling 10K, I check raise to 25K, and then I check the turn, he's going to get scared and check back kings. That's what I thought. Now, would he or would he not? I don't know. But I did raise, and he did call. And with the queen on the turn, I decided to check. He checked back. Maybe it's going according to plan. And the 10 on the river, I don't remember what he had. I remember what I was thinking, which is funny, but I don't remember what he had here. So ace king beats me. That's about it. I mean, if he has king 9 or 9-8 of spades. Ace king, king 9, 9-8 of spades. I don't think he has 10s very often for this line. Maybe never, and I block 10. So I guess I have the best hand. So I guess I should just make a big bet and hope that he calls with kings that I scared him into checking back, or aces that I scared him into checking back, according to my plan. But he does fold. So, I mean, he could have had that, but I don't know. Probably just had ace jack. I don't know. I have no idea. We take it down. My plan worked. Defend the big blind, ace 9 offsuit. Against under the gun min raise from Phil Ivey. Check, check. We're going to check turn. He's going to bet. I think it's just a fold. No. Like, I have ace high, which beats bluffs, and I have a gut shot, but he's raising under the gun. And so the number of hands that don't connect with this board, like, does he have 7-6 of hearts? Maybe. Is he betting it? Maybe. But I just don't beat. He just doesn't have enough hands to choose from as bluffs, I think. So I think that's a terrible call. We fold the river. And that is the last hand. I'm continuing to try to dig up old hands because I know you have told me you enjoy it so far, especially some of the very high stakes stuff, like my terrible session against Isildur, which you should check out if you haven't yet. Let me know what you'd like to see more of, and subscribe if you'd like to see more of this or anything. I'll see you in the next video. Take care.